Yeah, I've structured the program, as you probably note, in the workbook. So we're doing a little section this afternoon that I have partly jokingly called "What Would Nature Do?" Which is just about the context of like, why do we partner with nature? How can nature be a teacher for us? And then tomorrow morning, we're going to get into the fundamentals of connection. So I've got a little bit of a recipe of connectedness for you. And then tomorrow afternoon, we'll go further into the direct communication with nature. And then the last day, it still has threads from the building connection and communicating with nature. But I've tried to more explicitly cover how aspects of yourself can become revealed and also healed in nature. So we've called that one Encountering Self in Nature. So hopefully that makes sense and it's logical why it flows that way. If at any time, I'm always happy to take any questions. I'm really willing for this to be as organic as it needs to be. The workbooks, you'll see I've color-coded each section to make it easier for you. Have them with you all the time. There's not all the content in the workbooks, but there are, we're going to do some journaling questions. And so those ones are the ones that are labeled question. And then we also have exercises in the workbook, which are activities that we're all going to do together. And then I've also noted where in the program we'll have some solo time. So feel free to take notes in there as well, but you might need a little bit extra space for note taking if that's what you want to do. The other thing in terms of like housekeeping logistics is it would be great if everybody can find a buddy. So it just means have someone else that is your partner, your buddy for the program. And that's mostly for safety reasons. So and it can be anybody, just you can turn to the person next to you now and just agree who's going to be your partner. So when we have the solo time, I want to make sure that everybody has somebody else who knows where you are. You don't need to see each other during the solo time, but if for any reason you don't come back on time, or for any other reason we feel like you might need to be checked on, that your buddy's going to know where you are, or your buddy's going to know if you've come back from your solo time and you've just gone to the bathroom or something. So please use your buddy to stay aware of where your partner is at all times. So if you guys can sort out your buddies now and then just let me know when that's done. As always, this is about feeling, and you'll notice there's a common theme in all of the activities in every single section, in that it really begins from our own internal state of being. So we're going to have a little arrival meditation just to bring ourselves fully into ourselves, into our bodies, and also into the space, which is particularly useful for those of you who've been traveling to get there. So if you can find yourself in a comfortable position, if you're already feeling uncomfortable from sitting on the ground, you're welcome to stand up as well. We do practice quite a bit of standing meditation in nature, so I'm also open to that. Great, I'm going to sit up nice and straight too. So find your spine in a nice straight line and relax the shoulders down away from the ears. Relaxing all the muscles of the face, just noticing if there's a bit of clenching in the jaw or tightness around the eyes or the mouth. And then just tuning into your breath. Not trying to do anything with the breath, just giving it some awareness. Noticing the quality of your breathing Is it smooth? Is there any constriction or tightness to the flow? Noticing how your breath moves the belly and the rib cage and your upper chest. And then just taking your awareness down to your contact points with the floor. Noticing the points of pressure. Maybe some sensation of temperature, whether that's cool or hot. And then take your awareness into your lower belly. Just letting your awareness rest there for a moment. Feeling any sensations. Then moving up to the heart, letting your awareness just rest in your heart space. Feeling any sensations you can feel in the center of your chest, whether that's the movement of the breath or any sense of tightness. And then letting your awareness move to your outside environment. So taking in the sounds around you, feeling the touch of a breeze on your skin. Noticing any smells. And then using your awareness on the land around you, I'd like you to just say a little greeting to all the beings of nature around you and to the earth itself. Let them know that you're here, that we're there. And then just ask the land and the nature beings around you if they can help attune your energy body. So attuning your field to the field of nature around you so that you're really brought into this place at this time. So that all the fields of energy from all the beings, including yours, can move in one dynamic flow of energy. feeling yourself expand and melt into the space around you. And then when you feel complete, just keep your eyes closed, but bring your awareness back into your body. Taking a few conscious breaths again. Before gently opening your eyes. Now, you've got a few questions in your workbook, question 1, 2, and 3 in that first introductory section. So take the time now to fill in those questions, to give your responses. And then I think Cynthia's the one with the microphone. So Cynthia, when it looks like most people have finished, just let me know. Great. Oh, so how many of you are there in total? Is it 13?
14.
14.
14
Cool.
of us, yeah.
Okay, so if we do 2 groups of 3 and 2 groups of 4, that should be everybody. So yeah, if you can break into small groups now and just share with the other people in your group. Really, I want to get to that last question on the commitment, but if you want to give your group members a bit of background as to why that's important to you. Yeah, it's just a very brief, probably just a couple of minutes each to talk, and then we'll come back to the whole group. Thanks. Yeah, so that bit was mostly just for yourselves, really. We'll have some whole group sharing back with me in a second, but hopefully you now understand a little bit more about each other's intentions with the program. And I've definitely found running the quests, even though it seems like such an individual experience, people, are in solitude for the 4 days that they go out, that the group is actually a really important part of the learning. So if you heard from people about how they're sort of committing to show up for the program, then it's also something you can do for each other, is to help them stay with that, and also just have some conversations in your free time, how's it all going, and let it kind of develop organically as well. So I wanted to move into a section which was that's titled "What Would Nature Do?" So you've got a little bit in your workbook there, but why? Why do we want to partner with nature? So I think we can hear a title like partnering with nature and think, oh, okay, well, obviously, nature's great. Partnering with nature will be great. But when we think about it, there's a lot to it. And this section's probably the most conceptual out of all of it. So even if it doesn't 100% make sense, hopefully it's some seeds that are planted for later on that you can contemplate when you're out on your solos. So the way I've come to realize it is that all the patterns in all of life, all the principles of how life works, are constantly expressing through everything in creation, but it's most pure and visible and observable in nature. And we can see that. I'll show you some images of these patterns in a second. I wanted to share another little one of my stories for this section. I think I've got it in your workbook, but there's a quote from Joseph Campbell. Okay, this one. The goal of life is to match your heartbeat with the beat of the universe, to match your nature with nature. Now, he was really onto something there. So one thing that happened to me on my first sacred passage, the week-long version of the quest that I mentioned before. And when I knew that something different was happening, was after a few days, was probably 3 or 4 days in, I began to hear a bit of a chiming noise coming from somewhere. And I was sitting along a creek line up a valley. So there was forest, or bush as we call it in Australia. And I went for a little bit of an explore, went outside what I would have considered the boundaries of my solo site, because I just really wanted to find where this chiming noise was coming from. And I couldn't find it, but I thought, oh, well, I guess, you know, my senses are becoming more refined as I've been here a while now. So it's probably just, you know, some water trickling, dripping in a little cavern in the rocks in this creek. And I can just hear it as a resonant kind of sound. And I went back, you know, thought, okay, I've explored far enough, better go back to my practice little circle and actually do a proper practice. So, okay, yep, sit down, Claire, sit down. And it's another story, which I won't go into now, but let's just say I experienced a very strong energetic opening during that practice, which was assisted by a small bird there. And afterwards, I was just standing by the bank of the creek and realized that I was listening to some music, which sounded like a chant. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. Well, someone must be playing music down at the bottom of the valley. There was sort of our base camp there. But I thought that's kind of strange because they know that there's a group of us up here. And but I just kept listening to it. Oh, this is lovely. Yeah, I wondered, what does it sound like? Does it sound like a Buddhist chant? I was like, no, not really. Does it sound like an Aboriginal chant? No, not really. But I thought, I bet no matter what kind of chanting music it is, it's definitely going to be in time with a human heartbeat. Just had that really soothing kind of quality to it. So I put my fingers on my pulse, and that's when I realized that something was really going on, because it wasn't just in time with a human heartbeat in general. This music that I was hearing was perfectly in time with my own heartbeat. And things just got, let's just say, more interesting from there. But, you know, I didn't really realize exactly what that was all about. I kind of guessed it was something to do with, you know, an effect of being in a certain kind of depth of connection with nature. But it's interesting that, you know, this happened way back on my first sacred passage. And now, especially over the last couple of years, I've gotten a lot more kind of interested in the implications of these kind of realizations for working with systems, and why I'm kind of really now focused on how we can build in the patterns of nature into our collective systems that we co-create. And that was sort of like, you know, the deep embodied lesson. And now I can go back and use it to think about everything. Because all these patterns we can see reflecting in so many places in nature. So here we have on one side a human fingerprint, and on the other side a tree ring. On one side we have a cross section of a carrot, on the other side a human iris, a brain cell collection of neurons, and the universe. And here is a photo of a river floodplain, which kind of looks a lot like the tops of a tree. So it made me, you know, all this is kind of teaching us that when we have this deep partnership with nature, we can really be aligned with the patterns of life itself, and more just as we don't even have to think about it. You know, you may have heard of biomimicry, which is getting a lot more attention, but really, if we can get this embodied part that comes through our relationship with nature, it's no longer trying to mimic nature. It's that we can be nature itself, expressing itself. But while we as individuals, and also the cultures that we are amongst, have some level of disconnection, using our thinking mind to try to express as nature is also a very useful tool. But it also means that we can look to nature as our teacher. Nature isn't sort of influenced and changed and gets confused like humans can, because we have this mind that can really exist in duality and create a separation if it wants to. So one of the key patterns of nature is that it's always working towards generativity, which is what that last slide that I accidentally showed you before was about. So nature's always trying to work towards more and more levels of ordered complexity. So we see that in biodiversity. So when life has been able to continue doing its thing for a while, we get high levels of biodiversity. And we can see, well, when we think about what's the difference between sustainability and generativity, like regeneration is probably a bigger catchphrase now than sustainability. But I think for a good reason, because when we look at this slide that I accidentally shared with you, to sustain something is keeping something at a flat level. I know that's not necessarily what everyone was meaning when they've been using the term sustainability, but if you look at the actual meaning, root word of the word, that's there. A flat line, keeping things as they are, sustaining. But to generate has this creation quality, where we're creating surplus and we're creating more and more diversity and more levels of ordered complexity. So one thing that we notice is when we see this ordered complexity, we experience it as beauty. So I think that Van Gogh was pointing to that when he had this quote, "If you truly love nature, you will find beauty everywhere." So I wanted you guys to take a moment now and just look around outside if you can. I think you've got some open windows there. And just really look at everything around you and try to pay attention to when are you experiencing something as beautiful. So find all the things that you can, that you think are beautiful in nature around you. Just for a couple of minutes. So this is open for anyone to answer, if the microphone can be passed to whoever wants to. But what did you notice yourself doing there when you were trying to recognize beauty? How did you experience and recognize beauty?
Okay, Lan here. So for me, first thing I will look for is the color. I know nature is mostly green, but it's a different type of green anyway. So yeah, first thing I will look into the color that really can catch my eye. Even it's all green, there's some green, and the pattern of the, like the trees or the leaf, the way it's moving or the way it's construct, like yeah, the way it's shaped itself. So yeah, but first thing I will look into the most pleasing color in my eyes, even though it's all green. But yeah.
There's a lot of diversity in that green.
Yes.
Hey, Claire.
Hi.
For me, I think when I was when you said look for something beautiful, for me it's the movement, like the movement of clouds, or how the leaves moves being blown with a simple breeze. So that's what I'm usually focusing on when looking at the nature. Anything that is moving. Yep.
Thank you.
I think something that struck me quite immediately, just looking at everything around me, was noticing that everything that I was seeing beauty in were things that took time to grow into what it is. And like, for example, like noticing like the density in the trees behind me, and thinking about like the time it took for them to be what it is today. And I think it struck me that when we're talking about beauty, for me, like, at least it feels like at least that there is infinite possibilities for things in nature and things within us to grow and evolve and to grow more complex when given like the freedom and capacity to do so. And that's just something that I was thinking about in those few minutes.
Beautiful. You kind of, you've really got it there. Because one thing I really hope people get from the relationship with nature is that when we recognize the essential generativity of nature, and I do think this is something that we need to feel more than just intellectually get, but that's when we can really trust the unfolding of life. And in times like these, when there's so much craziness going on around the world, and a lot of fear, for me, I don't know how I would get through these times without that sense of the essential generativity of life. I feel like I can trust that and know, like you said, this infinite possibility for growth when the time is right. I'm also wondering, maybe someone thought when we did this little exercise on beauty, which is a very normal thing for people who live busy kind of lives that are focused on being productive. I wondered if anyone potentially thought, why on earth are we taking a moment to look at beauty? You don't need to answer that. It's a bit of a rhetorical question. But I feel like that could be quite a normal response, of thinking that beauty is something frivolous in a way, when really, and I think that it really came through some of the answers there, there's so much wisdom that we can access through beauty. So if there's one thing that I kind of want to make sure that you go into the rest of the program with, is understanding that it doesn't need to be coming from the head, that this very heart-centered following these what's pleasing to us, we were designed to notice beauty, and that wasn't by some accident. This is an essential part of human functioning. And so use that during this time as well. Like if you're on your solos and you're going, oh, what was I meant? I'm getting a bit bored doing what what the activity was. You don't have to be doing anything. By simply observing and enjoying and being present to the beauty of nature, you actually are doing it as well. So I wanted to make sure that was included in the introduction. I'll also leave that as a bit of a seed for you to contemplate when you're on your solos and with nature, about what really could be being revealed about what there is to learn from nature. So going back to a slightly more head-based question, I know that Forever Saba is an ecosystem and is very much learning a lot from nature in how it's designed. So maybe you can use Forever Saba as a bit of an example here when we're talking about what would nature do. So in what ways does your organisation use the principles of living systems or of nature in how it's designed and operating?
It was very intentional for us as Forever Saba unfolded for it not to be a linear process, and for it to be what we called in the early days a core out process. So people talk about top down, bottom up. We talked about core out. What did that mean? So for example, the elephants, how did we get to working with elephants in the heart of Sabah? Well, we understood it as the elephants called. The elephants told us there's a problem. We went there for different reasons, and we went there on the basis of a relationship with a couple of government agencies. And, they asked us, can you help in this part of Sabah because it's too complex for us. We know that there are a lot of watersheds, a lot of communities. We would like to gazette those watersheds as protected areas, but there are too many people and we don't know how to engage with them. In our first trip there, we saw an elephant trapped it had 4 legs chained because it had rampaged into a farmer's oil palm, farm. So I always saw that as you met Yogi, I believe, Claire, did you? Was Yogi at the session? Yeah. And yeah, of course you did. And Yogi and I speak the same language, so we just looked at each other and we were like, well, looks like the elephants have called. So every single one of Forever Sabah's partnerships and projects have emerged through some kind of a calling like that. And so we never built this is the 10-year global strategy, and we will address these 10 issues, and these are the 17 SDGs, and these kinds of things. It was very much listening and tuning in, and that's how the ecology unfolded.
Yeah, and I really believe that one way that we can partner with nature, I know one of the focuses on this course is definitely about that direct communication, but I also really believe that as we have this deeper embodied connection with nature, things like understanding how to use these principles, living systems principles, in the very complicated kind of human world like organizational design, I really think that we're able to have a much better grasp on that kind of wisdom and why it's important, and also how to use it. It's very difficult to prove that chain of causality, but I've definitely noticed for me, like I would have probably thought that I really understood all these principles of living systems, but I definitely have a much better sense for them now and how to use them through spending so much time in nature. So that's sort of like it's a background to everything that we're going to do moving forward, is that there is this kind of level of partnering with nature as well. Okay, so we've had a little bit of introduction and context now. So in your workbook, you have another journaling question there, which is to summarize your intention for the program. So I know you may have already come in thinking that you knew your intention or you shared something during the introductory circle, but take a few moments to see if anything's changed for you and how you would state it now, and we're going to use that intention, or we're going to take that intention out to nature when we move into our solos in a little while. So have a few minutes now to see if your intention has refined at all.